Florida's record in 2020 doesn't really tell the whole story. Doesn't really show you how good this team actually was. It's a team that only lost 2 games in the regular season, but then when you add the loss to Alabama, add the loss to Oklahoma in a game where they didn't even have really their full roster, not even close because of all the opt-outs, you see the record for Florida. You see 8-4, but this was maybe the best 8-4 team in the history of college football. This was a really good team. Yes, they did slip up against LSU. They did not play their best game there, but they were a fumble away from beating Texas A&M. And then, of course, had their opportunities against Alabama, played them tougher than anyone else in the country last year. So, again, the record doesn't really indicate how good this team was, but we're going to project what their record will be in 2021 based on this schedule. So we're going to give you some percentages here, and really this is an early look, not a prediction for Florida. It's simply a projection based on their odds to win each game, based off of my early thoughts on these teams. And again, there's a lot of research, a lot of things to do through the rest of the offseason. Plus, we don't even know the full rosters. The transfer portal still has tons of players available, so we don't know exactly what these teams are going to look like. But we're going to give you a very early projected record for Florida just based on the difficulty of their schedule. So this is the scale that we use, and it'll be color-coded here. The games that we leave in white will be games where they're really 50-50 games, where I think the percentage would be 41 to 59%. If they have less than a 10% chance to win, it'll be in red, 10 to 25 in orange, 26 to 40% in yellow, 60 to 74 in purple, 75 to 90% in blue. And if they have a more than 90% chance to win the game, we'll put it in green. And that's where we will start the easy wins, the games that Florida should win with no real problem, games where they're going to be favored by, 20 plus points, something like that. And we've got 4 of them. We got Florida Atlantic, we got South Florida on the road, and then Sanford. All 3 of these games should be easy wins. All their non-conference games besides Florida State. I don't really see any of these games staying close at all. South Florida on the road, we'll see if they improve this year. I don't really see there being any real challenge in any of these 3 games. So we're going to now move on to the blue, the 75 to 90% games. These are games where I think Florida will be favored by double digits, and that's a wide range, 75 to 90%. Some of these are going to be closer to 75, some to 90, but these are games that it would be very surprising if Florida lost. And here we've got Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. Tennessee is not going to be very good. They've lost their head coach and a ton of players, so I don't expect much from the Vols this year. That one's probably closer to 90%. So is Vanderbilt. I don't really see any challenge from those 2 teams for Florida. I think they roll over both of them. South Carolina might be a little bit closer to 75% just because it's on the road. And, South Carolina wasn't horrible last year. They got some guys back. They'll be an interesting team, but with a new head coach, I don't really expect South Carolina to be great. But again, you never know. But like I said, it's a game that Florida should win. They'll be favored by double digits, and all 3 of these games should be wins for Florida. And when we calculate the projected record, we count all 6 of these games as wins. So that gives you 6 wins automatically. And then we'll look at the rest of the games and see what the projected record would be based off of the results in those 6 games. And we now move on to the 60 to 74% games. And they've got 3 of those. Kentucky on the road. Now, this is one where I think Florida will be favored. And when we talk about these games, we're talking about games where Florida is going to be favored by about a touchdown, somewhere in there, 6, 7, 8 points, more than likely. Kentucky on the road will not be an easy game. Kentucky will be a quality team. They're not going to be a top 10 team, like I said, but they have played Florida pretty tough the last few years, and I think this is a game that could wind up being close. It wouldn't shock me if Kentucky pulled off the upset, but Florida should be the clear favorite in this matchup. Missouri on the road that's a tricky game right there, and Missouri has played Florida really tough pretty much since they've been in the SEC, and they're going to be good this year. They're going to have a lot of guys back. The game is on the road. It's right before playing Florida State, rivalry game, which they didn't get to play last year, so that maybe could play into this a little bit. So yes, I do think Florida will be the better team. I think they will be favored, but I don't think it'll be by much more than a touchdown or so, and that is a game that could be tricky. So we're going to put that in the 60 to 74% range, and I think That one's probably fairly close to 60%. I would say closer to 60 than 74. And then Florida State. I think that's really in the same category. I know if you look at recent history, Florida has dominated this rivalry, and you say, well, they shouldn't have any problems here. But Florida State's going to be a big mystery in 2021. They have talent. They've recruited at a high level, going back to even before Mike Norvell. And they've got a ton of transfers coming in. I mean, they have really hit the transfer portal hard. Will it work out? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but we really just don't know at this point. It is so early. And, Mackenzie Milton comes in at quarterback. What if he goes back to playing the way he played before he got hurt? This could be a good team. Right now, I still think Florida will be the favorite, especially playing at home, but it's not a game that I'm going to give them more than a 60-74% chance in that range, because I think it's a rivalry game against a team that could be pretty good. But again, I'm going to favor Florida by about a touchdown in this one. So you got 3 games like that. Then we go to the next category, and we're going to skip down to the games where Florida is going to be an underdog. We're going to go with the 26 to 40% range. Games where Florida is going to be the team that'll be about a touchdown underdog. And I think there's a couple of these games, and we're talking about Alabama and Georgia. Alabama and Georgia, to me, are the 2 games that Florida is going to have to pull off an upset if they're going to win. I know Alabama's at home. I know it's in the swamp, but this is Alabama, and I know they lost a lot, but so did Florida. So I would have to favor the Crimson Tide in this game, just looking at the history of Alabama and Nick Saban and what he has done. So that, to me, is going to be a tough one for Florida. I think they'll be underdogs, but I don't think they'll be huge underdogs. And I know Georgia-Florida, the rivalry. I know Florida beat them last year, but I think Georgia is going to be about a touchdown favorite in this game. Georgia brings back a lot. That offense is going to be really explosive. JT Daniels didn't play in the game last year. So for me, this is a game that goes towards Georgia. I lean towards Georgia. I think they'll be favored by, around. This is closer to a 60-40 game than a 75-25 game, but still it's enough to where I think we can bump this one down to the 26 to 40% range, not really in that 50-50 territory. So those 2 games are the 2 games where I think Florida will be a clear underdog. Not a huge underdog, but a clear underdog. And then that leaves LSU. LSU, we're going to leave in white because LSU, to me, is a 50-50 game. I think it is between 41 and 59% for Florida. If I had to pick, if I was going to lean one way or the other, I would probably lean towards LSU just because it's at home for them. They beat them last year, although that could mean the revenge factor could play into this one for Florida. It's hard to say, but Florida's just going to lose so much. LSU brings so much back. Game is in Baton Rouge. That's why I would favor LSU, but I think this is about a field goal spread, a 3 or 4 point spread. Nothing too major. I think it's a close 50-50 game, and I think that's one that could go either way. So I'm going to say we're going to leave that one in the 50-50 range. So that means, again, when we look at these 6 games, then we're talking about Alabama, Kentucky, LSU, Georgia, Missouri, and Florida State. That's what it really comes down to for Florida. The other games we're going to count as wins, and they don't have any that we would count as losses. They're not going to be huge underdogs against anyone, I don't think. And so then when you divide these games up, you average out the percentages, you pretty much split those 6 games. So Florida's projected record based off of this schedule is 9-3. Could be a little bit better. I think 10-2 might be about as good as it's going to be for Florida this year. But at the same time, it could be much worse. They could be a 7-5 type team. That might be about the bottom for them. But 9-3, I think, is a very fair projection. I think most Florida fans would probably say this is about what they're going to do in 2021. And given the schedule, again, 9-3, the projected record for Florida. I would love to know what you guys think about this. Give me your comments down below. What do you think Florida's record will be in 2021? What do you think about this schedule? Do you think it sets up well for them, or is it tough? When we go back to that schedule again, I like the dates of the games. I think it's tough games are split up pretty well, especially with the bye week between LSU and Georgia. But there are still some really tough games, especially when you talk about LSU and Alabama out of the West. And because of that, I think there will be some losses for Florida. And not an official prediction, but again, based off of this schedule, the projected record for Florida in 2021 is 9-3.